Y'all hear me? You ready for this? Y'all know me, still the same Tanuki. Nah, I'm just joking. Can you imagine if I did that? Has he learned nothing? Couldn't even get a Turkish dancer? Listen, my performance last year, you probably remember, it was so hot. Number of people reported being burned in the audience, so I was asked to chill this year. Fire marshal confronted me at the airport. He said, Tanuki, I love your raps, but I don't want no problems. I don't want no fires. No rapping on stage. I said, it's no problem. Gave him my autograph. It's all good. So instead of rapping, I'm just going to drop a bunch of dank memes. Maybe we'll get a little bit spicy further on. But I want to ask you guys, do I get a timer? That's what I want to ask you guys. Do I get a timer? Otherwise, I'm just going to talk for an hour. All right. They'll figure it out. So I want to ask 20 minutes. Yeah, I got a few extra seconds. All right, I want to ask this fundamental question. How often do you think about the Cosmos Hub? Yeah? Because maybe you're familiar with this clicker. Bam, bam, bam. No. Here we go. Oh, no. Giving away the jokes. Shiza. All right, so here we are in Istanbul, a.k.a. Constantinople, a.k.a. Byzantium, home of the original Byzantine general. I believe you're going to hear from a Byzantine general a little bit later. He hooked me up with this dope Byzantine crown. Very excited to be here. And I want to talk to you about this question because you may have heard about this TikTok phenomenon. People all over the world are asking their friends this question, how often do you think about the Cosmos Hub? And it turns out it's all the time. Right? And people are reeling about this because they just found out how often their friends are thinking about the Roman Empire, and it turns out they're thinking about the Cosmos Hub even more than that, right? And this is really remarkable. Now, I don't really want to draw any kind of connection or analogy between the hub and the Roman Empire. That's not my thing. I want to move us away from empires, towards city-states. That's kind of my whole my MO. But it's really interesting to me that people all over the world are discovering how much their friends think about the Cosmos Hub. Oops. This was a mistake. This shouldn't actually have been here. So why is it, where's Sunny? Why is it that everyone is so obsessed with the Cosmos Hub? Okay, let's talk about this a bit. Now, the Hub was a pioneer of a new approach to building blockchains, right? Oops. What's happening? A pioneer of a new approach to building blockchains, right? Sovereign, interoperable blockchains, proof of stake with a brand new kind of stack, with the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint. Now we've got Comet, putting it all together, showing that communities could come together and deploy in a highly decentralized way a new kind of blockchain, and that was the Cosmos Hub. The Hub also has this kind of mythological history, right? It never really had a stable, organized, dedicated development team really until basically this year. It benefits from this Lindy effect. It's had no marketing, no single entity behind it, no sort of degenerative activity dominating what it's useful for. A lot of people think this is a problem. Oh, the Hub needs to compete. It needs to be DeFi. We need more degens. We'll talk about the degens in a bit. But I think it's cool that the Hub is, kind of more minimalistic and chill and sort of like an anchor in a thrashing sea. It's also unique in its focus on supporting sovereignty and interoperability over its own value accrual, right? The Hub, its core position is to enable any of the world's communities to deploy their own blockchains that are sovereign and yet interoperable with all the others, right? And it's prioritized that and it's focused on that even over itself. And it's unique in that respect, in focusing on, sort of growing this larger ecosystem. But more recently, earlier this year, we launched Interchain Security. Yeah? All right. And, this has really unlocked a whole new era for the Cosmos Hub. So the Cosmos Hub is, it's really quite hot right now. Now, a year ago, around the same time, on the other side of the world, we were up here talking, we dropped this new paper, Atom 2.0. So today, I'm very excited to announce the Atom 3.0 paper. No, just totally kidding. It's not even funny, that joke. But in the last paper, we talked about a new secure economic scaling layer for the Cosmos Hub, right? We put forward these kind of two key ideas that the Cosmos Hub needs to evolve in these sort of two directions, in a direction of interchain security, a direction of interchain money, right? And it maybe wasn't articulated that clearly. Elijah from Duality, I guess maybe now Neutron, wrote a forum post recently about the vision for the hub, interchain security, interchain money. And so I sort of want to talk about those two prongs of the kind of Cosmos Hub vision today, because it was really, that was a big part of what the Atom 2.0 paper was about, and it's a big part of what everyone has been working on and working to deliver this year. So let's start with interchain security, yeah? So one way to think about this is that we're pushing for the Cosmos Hub to support a kind of hub minimalism, right? Or what I like to call practical hub minimalism. Recently, actually, Vitalik wrote a post very similar to this kind of idea, except, Ethereum gets a lot of good ideas from Cosmos, but their marketing is much, much better. So rather than like practical minimalism, he called it, minimum viable enshrinement, which is just, it's so much cooler. So we might have to adopt that. But the idea is that we want to reduce the surface area of the Cosmos Hub, right? But we still want it to be able to extend its functionality, but we want to do that in a modular way. Right? And so rather than adding features directly to the Cosmos Hub, it can extend its feature set by launching new chains that it then secures, right? And another way to think about what this is offering is that we can fill in the spectrum of sovereignty, right? So Cosmos started by prioritizing sovereign blockchains. Any chain could launch with its own sovereign validator set catered just to its community. And now with the Cosmos Hub, we can start to fill in the spectrum of different options of sovereignty. So earlier this year, the Informal Systems team delivered replicated security, sort of the first version of interchain security, and the community launched that into production. But over the next year or so, we're working on other versions of interchain security, like opt-in security and variations thereof, and mesh security. So we can the entire validator set doesn't necessarily need to be involved. We can explore a sort of larger spectrum of opportunities for chains to leverage the security of the Cosmos Hub. Yeah. So sometimes, people seem to think this is what's going on, right? That Cosmos is like giving up on sovereignty, and everyone's like, "Oh, damn! I don't need to be sovereign. I can roll with the Cosmos Hub." But that's not really what's going on here. The way to think about this is that we're filling in this kind of spectrum of sovereignty, because it's not the case that everyone needs to have a sovereign chain all the time. It's important that they have the option to do that, but sovereignty is actually expensive. You have, provisioning sovereignty costs something. You don't get that for free. And, there are times in bear markets or whatever where it makes sense to actually pool with others, to reduce the cost of provisioning your own security, and to roll into the security zone of another blockchain, which is, what seems to be happening in and around the Cosmos Hub today. And the way interchain security was written was really to enable chains to come and go as necessary, right? Stride started as an independent blockchain, rolled in to be under interchain security, and maybe in the future, chains that are in the interchain security umbrella will decide, it's time for me to reclaim my sovereignty and roll back out. And that's all important. So again, it's about providing options to developers and communities to fill in this kind of spectrum of sovereignty. Oops, this was also a mistake. So I want to put forward an idea, if we're talking about extending the feature set and functionality of the Cosmos Hub, we could think about core sort of functions that we might want the Cosmos Hub to have, like virtual machines and service chains, right? So imagine that every major service, every major virtual machine running as a consumer chain, secured by Atom, pulling together in the same direction, a whole greater than the sum of its parts, turbocharged by new features offered by the Cosmos Hub, like atomic IBC. We'll talk about that in a second. So you can imagine, we have the Cosmos Hub, we have a bunch of consumer chains for various core services, right? Some you might be familiar with. There's one here in the bottom, obligation clearing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. We might also have core virtual machines, right? We have a Cosmosm VM chain, EVM chain, Solana VM chain, each scaling with its own set of rollups. All of this can happen under the security umbrella of the Cosmos Hub. That can be a place where we launch, many core sort of feature sets, and again, all pooling together to do something great, right? So I want to talk about atomic IBC. So you might be familiar, we put up a funding proposal recently for Informal Systems and Haifa to move its funding from the ICF to be accountable directly to the Cosmos Hub. Now's the time for that. And one of the ideas we put in the roadmap was this idea of atomic IBC, which is essentially the notion that if you have a bunch of chains under a common security umbrella, you can start to do more interesting things with the interoperability and communication between them. In particular, you can do atomic composability, right? So you can have transactions that execute atomically across multiple chains, which is basically like a holy grail of IBC. And so the way we're proposing to do that, and Jahan has been writing some great blog posts and other material about this, is essentially with a new kind of shared block space, right? We might call it a mega block, where different chains that opt into atomic IBC can share the same block and the same mempool, and that allows them to essentially have their own separate state machines, right? They can still run transactions in parallel, but they can also place transactions together that execute atomically across all those chains, right? And so it looks something like this. This is the only slide on a white background. I hope your eyes are all right. Here we have chain A, chain B, chain C. We have our friend Begin Block from ABCI. So these things start in parallel, but then they execute these atomic IBC bundles that allow transactions to compose across these different chains in a single atomic transaction before finally executing the transactions for each different chain sort of in parallel, right? And this allows us to have the scalability of parallelism, but also the atomic composable functionality that atomic IBC brings you. And this can allow you to do many complex transaction sequences in a single step, right? Which can be very, very, very powerful. Okay, so I want to shift gears now from talking about interchain security to talking about this idea of interchain money. I have a feeling that a number of the following presentations are going to be about interchain money, so I'm going to tee them up with a very controversial take. Here it is. Atom is not money. Oh my God, why would she say that? Get him, boys! No, it's cool. We're gonna talk through this. I'm gonna take it easy on you, and we'll leave it to the other guys to convince you otherwise. Consumer chains and beyond, a lot of them are using Atom for fees and as collateral, and this is great. It's awesome. But I think it's probably likely, and many would probably agree, that as stablecoins come into the ecosystem, and they're coming, right? They are likely to displace Atom as a fee token, and that's okay too. That's great. It's great for users. We care a lot about UX, and just having something that's useful as collateral doesn't mean it's money, right? And even just that it's used for fees on a bunch of blockchains, does that mean it's money? I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of confusion in our industry about what money is, confusion that's been perpetuated by the Bitcoiners and the Ethereum people running around claiming that their tokens are money as if that's the most important thing. It's possible for a token to be important even if it doesn't qualify as money. So what is money? Well, I've been really trying to answer this question for myself. I think money is for payments. It's for denominating and discharging debt. That's what money is all about. That's what payments are all about. You have the three functions of money: the unit of account for denominating debt, the medium of exchange for discharging debt here and now, the store of value for discharging debt elsewhere or later, right? It's a simple formulation. And a lot of people seem to think, oh, well, maybe these tokens satisfy this like store value function, and that means they're money, but I think there's more to the story. So I think I would rather conceive of these things as a form of capital, right? And maybe what we're talking about is interchain capital, and we need to work our way up to interchain money to really get there. And so today, it's true that core to security is a safe, stable, reliable medium to form the staking token. And this is what Atom has always been about. It's a staking token, right? It's designed to secure the Cosmos Hub network. And the minimalist design of the Cosmos Hub mitigates many different kinds of risks and exposures. It's all about reducing the surface area, right? And this core idea, minimal work, maximum results, right? Any senior engineer you talk to will love this, right? This is what they like to do. The least amount of work for the most amount of impact. It's also very nice that the Atom is well distributed. It was early. There's no sort of single entity that owns too large a proportion. There's no like new tokens that are vesting that are about to be unlocked or dumped onto the market or anything like that, right? So this all sets it up for a very sort of unique positioning, right? So that's today. What about tomorrow? Well, this was something we also talked quite a bit about last year in the Atom 2.0 paper. This idea of liquid staking coming, and with liquid staking and with revenue going to start to come online from consumer chains, Atom inflation can actually start to come down. And we don't need DeFi to compete with staking yields, right? And the liquid staking module, which also just launched a couple weeks ago, right? I mean, half of Atom 2.0, it's already here, right? Liquid staking, ICS, completely independent teams, independent development teams, independent tracks to get onto the Cosmos Hub, independent governance votes launched by the community. It's amazing to see the decentralization happening in this ecosystem, right? So, but I want to caution you because with with liquid staking, everyone's excited about finance and financialization, and the degenerative activity is sort of is sort of coming back. And a lot of people in crypto, they seem to think, oh, if we just build all of these all of the traditional finance stuff, but we do it open source and decentralized, then somehow we'll magically solve all the problems of money and finance, right? So is this true, that if we just do the same old stuff, but we do it open and decentralized, that this will be the future of finance? What do you think? Nope. Because the problems of money and finance are a lot deeper than this. Open source, decentralization, these things are important, obviously, but there's a lot more to the story, right? And so how are we going to avoid the same old traps, the same old kind of financialization issues, right? And I think, we all kind of agree that there's something deeply wrong about the structure of the current system. It has something to do with central banks, the structure of the commercial banking system. But where did these central banks come from and why? This is what we need to understand. And a lot of people run around talking about 1971 as if that was some kind of magic moment where everything went wrong. Well, I've got news for you. The real problem was 400 years earlier, and you got to go back to the 16th century to to WTF happened in 1571, right? I made a special website for this occasion. So now I'm going to talk about the 16th century, all right? Which my colleagues here, is Thibaut over there, is very, he's got his head in his hands, can talk about the 16th century. It's so boring, everyone's going to go to sleep. Well, wake up, okay? This is important stuff. If you want to understand how we're going to solve problems of money and finance, we need to understand where it all came from. And it started in the 16th century, where there was a highly sophisticated banking system run by these exchange bankers from Italy, where they were focused on banking serving trade, right? Finance was in service of trade, of the productive economy, of commerce. They would gather at these fairs in Lyon every quarter, and they would clear all of the trade credit in Europe without using basically any money at all, which is astounding, right? They were doing this clearing, and it benefited all the merchants. But then there was this crisis that occurred in the 1570s, right? We can peg 1571 for the memes of it, and they got replaced by a new system that emerged from an alliance between the Genoese bankers and the Spanish Empire that was no longer based on financing trade. It was now based on financing permanent deficits of the state so that they could pay for their wars. Right? And so we moved from a world of banking being in service of trade to banking being in service of the debt financing of states and of war, and we never and it was sort of out of that crisis and out of that new system that we got the rise of central banks and all this stuff. So we really need to understand where this came from if we're going to actually fix these problems of money and finance, because we never really had the opportunity to develop a more sound and sustainable approach to move from working capital concerns to investment capital concerns without passing through all this drama and fiasco of the permanent deficit financing of states waging war, right? And so that's what we need to understand and return to kind of the basics, right? Crypto is a return to the basics of store of value function of money, but we also need to return to the basics of the medium of exchange function of money, right? Money is for payments, for denominating and discharging debt, and finance is something that builds on top of payments, right? We need to build up from these working capital concerns to investment capital concerns, redevelop a real theory of capital, which the economists kind of gave up on because they found it too difficult, because they didn't really know what they were doing. But we're going to start from a much simpler position, which is just this question: how do you build a payment system? This should be the core question we're all asking. How do you build a payment system that reduces the most debt with the least amount of money, right? That's what it's about. We're going to turn to our friend Vince McMahon here, right? And he's going to reiterate the functions of money and then what you do with them. You denominate debt, you discharge debt here and now, you discharge debt elsewhere or later, and then you clear that debt collaboratively, right? That's what this is all about. So you may recall I said, I put forward this idea of an obligation clearing consumer chain. What's that all about? I want to bring it back now. The idea here is that you can build a system, and this is something we have a separate team at Informal working on, separate from our hub team. We call this collaborative finance, where people can collaboratively pool their obligations, their debts, in a privacy-preserving way, and you can run graph algorithms to clear the most amount of debt with the least amount of money. And you can use different liquidity sources to plug into all of that to facilitate that clearing. So you could have Atom coming in from the hub, you could have USDC coming in from an asset issuance consumer chain, you could have ETH coming in from a bridging consumer chain, and all these different assets can work together to ensure that the most amount of debt gets cleared using the least amount of money in a way that respects everyone's preferences, right? And this can allow us to kind of actually start to work towards, from Interchain Security and Interchain Capital, towards really having a meaningful approach to interchain money, which I don't think we have yet, but I think we can work towards, right? And so ultimately you get Interchain Capital, Interchain Security, really coming together to give you a strong Cosmos hub so that we can focus again on the problem of interchain money. Long live the Cosmos hub. Thank you so much. That's it for me today. Just a plug. Our team is hosting a workshop on the future of software tomorrow. Check it out, 10 a.m. Learn Quint. It's a beautiful, delightful new language. You won't regret it. Thanks, everyone.